The Zenathi Empire had been maintaining stellar bodies for approximately 14,000 years, which sounds impressive until you realize they had also been complaining about it for exactly 14,000 years. Keeping a star burning at optimal levels was delicate work, the kind of task that required 6 specialized degrees, a meditation certification, and the emotional stability of a sedated monk. Stars were temperamental cosmic furnaces that could obliterate entire solar systems if someone sneezed wrong during maintenance. The Zenathi took this seriously, very seriously. So seriously, in fact, that they had created an entire bureaucratic sub-department just to approve the paperwork for thinking about approaching a star. Then humanity showed up and ruined everything, as they tended to do. The Galactic Stellar Maintenance Guild had not expected much from the newest species to join their ranks. Humans were loud, impulsive, and had only recently stopped shooting each other long enough to notice there were other planets out there. Their application to join the guild had been filed in triplicate, then quadruplicate, when the first set burst into flames due to what the humans called an unfortunate coffee incident. The Zenathi had accepted them anyway, mostly because the guild was hemorrhaging members faster than a punctured fusion reactor. Young Zenathi were choosing careers in interpretive quantum dancing rather than stellar maintenance. Something about not wanting to die horribly in a supernova. The human engineer currently floating in a reinforced observation pod 7 million kilometers from a dying G-type star did not look like someone who belonged there. She looked like someone who had wandered out of a mechanic's garage, gotten lost, and somehow ended up in space. Her maintenance suit was covered in unauthorized modifications, hand-scrawled equations, and at least 3 patches that definitely violated safety codes. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy knot that had given up any pretense of professionalism approximately 4 hours into her shift. She was humming something while recalibrating a plasma torch, completely unbothered by the fact that the star in front of her was having what could only be described as a cosmic temper tantrum. 15 years ago, she had been designing weapons. Very good weapons. The kind of weapons that could crack a planet's crust or collapse a star into a black hole if you really committed to the bit. She had been exceptional at it, actually, which was either a point of pride or deep shame depending on who was asking and how much she had been drinking. Her specialty had been stellar disruption devices, tools designed to destabilize nuclear fusion in enemy star systems. Galactic warfare had some deeply unpleasant flavors, and she had helped cook up some of the worst recipes. Then the war ended. Treaties were signed, weapons were decommissioned, and she found herself staring at her life's work while having what her therapist called a significant existential crisis, and what she called realizing I'm an idiot. Destroying stars had come naturally to her. She understood the delicate balance of fusion, the precise points where everything could go catastrophically wrong. She knew how to break them. Which, as it turned out, meant she also knew how to fix them. The Stellar Maintenance Guild had been desperate enough to overlook her resume, which was either progressive hiring practices or utter insanity. Probably both. She had joined expecting to wash out within a month, but something strange happened. She was good at this. Terrifyingly good. The same instincts that had made her an excellent destroyer made her an even better creator. She understood stars the way a demolition expert understands buildings, knowing exactly where the stress points were, where the cracks would form, where the whole thing might come apart if you looked at it wrong. The other guild members found this deeply disturbing. Commander Vectis of the Zenathi Stellar Corps was finding it disturbing right now, in fact. He floated in the observation station 300,000 kilometers away, watching the human work with the kind of horrified fascination usually reserved for watching someone juggle live grenades. His 4 eyes blinked in an uncoordinated pattern that betrayed his anxiety. Next to him, Junior Technician Morlax was stress-eating crystallized nutrients and making small whimpering sounds. "She is going to die," Morlax said. "Not for the first time." "Probably," Vectis agreed. "Also not for the first time." The star they were observing, designated KX 7742 by the bureaucrats and Big Angry Jerry by the human, was in its death throes. Not the slow, graceful death that stars usually experienced over millions of years, but the fast, violent kind that happened when someone had done something monumentally stupid to it 3 centuries ago. A weapons test, specifically. Some long-extinct civilization had decided to see what would happen if they fired an experimental fusion disruptor at it. The answer, it turned out, was nothing good. The star had been slowly eating itself ever since, its fusion cycle degrading into an unstable mess that was maybe a decade away from going supernova and taking 6 inhabited planets with it. The Zenathi specialists had looked at Big Angry Jerry, run approximately 7,000 simulations, and unanimously declared it unfixable. Too unstable, too dangerous. Too much chance of accidentally triggering the supernova early and vaporizing everyone in the system, including themselves. The recommendation had been to evacuate the planets and let nature take its catastrophic course. Then the human had raised her hand during the briefing and said, with the confidence of someone who had clearly never heard the phrase healthy self-preservation instinct, that she could fix it. The Zenathi had laughed. Politely, of course, because they were civilized, but definitely laughed. Then she had pulled up her own simulations, walked them through her proposed solution, and the laughter had died pretty quickly. Her plan was insane. It was reckless. It involved getting closer to an unstable star than anyone had attempted in recorded history and manually recalibrating its fusion cycle, using equipment that was technically rated for maybe a quarter of the radiation she would be experiencing. It was also the only plan that had a chance of working. So here they were, watching her drift closer to a star that was actively trying to kill itself and possibly take her with it. She had been at it for 6 hours now, working with the kind of focused intensity that suggested she had either forgotten she could die or simply stopped caring. Her pod was equipped with enough shielding to theoretically protect her from the radiation, assuming nothing went wrong. In stellar maintenance, something always went wrong. The star's surface roiled with magnetic storms, each one powerful enough to sterilize a planet. Solar flares erupted like angry questions, asking why this tiny creature dared come so close. The fusion cycle was a mess. Deuterium burning too fast in some regions and too slow in others, creating instabilities that rippled through the entire stellar body. Standard procedure would be to use automated drones to inject stabilizing elements into the star's outer layers over a period of months, carefully coaxing it back into equilibrium. The human had looked at standard procedure, said that's adorable, and brought a plasma torch instead. She was currently burning equations directly into the star's photosphere, not writing them on paper or calculating them in a computer, but literally carving them into the surface of a star using controlled fusion bursts. Each equation was a precise adjustment to the local fusion rate, a mathematical instruction written in fire that the star's own processes would read and incorporate. It was the stupidest, most brilliant thing Vectis had ever witnessed. It was like performing surgery using explosives. It should not work. It was working. Fusion rate in Sector 7 stabilizing, reported the monitoring station, surprise evident even in the automated voice. Magnetic field coherence increasing. She is actually doing it. Vectis felt his 3 hearts sink. He had been quietly hoping she would fail quickly, so they could retrieve her body and move on with the evacuation. Watching her succeed was somehow worse. It meant everything they had believed about stellar maintenance was wrong, or at least incomplete. It meant the careful, measured, safe approaches they had developed over millennia were not the only way. It meant humans, who had joined galactic civilization about 15 minutes ago in cosmic terms, had just revolutionized their entire field by being too reckless to know it was impossible. The human's voice crackled over the communication channel, casual as someone ordering lunch. "Hey Vectis, I'm seeing some weird resonance patterns in Sector 12. Probably nothing, but if Big Angry Jerry suddenly gets significantly angrier, you might want to back up a few million kilometers. Just as a precaution, define significantly angrier," Vectis managed. "Oh, you'll know. There will be screaming. Mostly mine, but also probably yours." Morlax made a sound that suggested he was reconsidering his career choices. Vectis could not blame him. The human had been like this since she joined the guild, treating cosmic disasters with the same energy someone might approach a broken refrigerator. Annoying, sure, but fixable if you had the right tools and a complete disregard for your own mortality. The Zenathi had spent centuries developing complex philosophical frameworks around stellar maintenance, treating it as a sacred art that required spiritual preparation and emotional balance. The human treated it like plumbing. Very dangerous, very complicated plumbing that could kill you and everyone you loved, but plumbing nonetheless. And she was exceptional at it. Another 3 hours passed. The human worked with steady precision, adjusting fusion rates, smoothing out magnetic field irregularities, basically giving the star a complete tune-up while floating in conditions that should have killed her 40 different ways. She hummed while she worked, some ancient earth song about fire and desire that was either deeply profound or completely inappropriate. Possibly both. Finally, after 9 hours of continuous work, she drifted back from the star's surface. Her pod was scorched black, several sensors were completely fried, and her suit's radiation counter was making sounds that suggested it had given up trying to display actual numbers and was just screaming instead. But behind her, KX 7742 burned steady and bright, its fusion cycle smooth for the first time in 3 centuries. Big Angry Jerry was no longer angry. Big Angry Jerry was downright peaceful. The monitoring station erupted in shocked celebration. 6 planets full of sentient beings were not going to die horribly. The impossible had been accomplished, and the human responsible for it was already pulling off her helmet, looking slightly annoyed that the whole thing had taken so long. Vectis opened a direct channel, searching for words adequate to the moment. "That was exceptional work. Unprecedented. You have saved billions of lives and rewritten the standards for stellar maintenance. How do you feel?" She thought about it for a moment, scratching at her hair where the helmet had flattened it. Hungry mostly. Also maybe a little irradiated, but that should pass. Is the commissary still serving those weird purple noodle things? I really want some weird purple noodle things. This was humanity in a nutshell. Accomplish the impossible, then immediately think about lunch. But Vectis was not entirely stupid, despite what his willingness to supervise human engineers might suggest. He had been watching her work, really watching, and he had noticed something the others had missed. The way she moved around the star was not just competent or even expert. It was intimate. She understood it at a level that went beyond training or education. She knew where it would break, because she had spent years learning how to break things exactly like it. "You designed weapons," he said, not quite a question. Her expression shifted, becoming guarded. "Yeah, a while ago. Different life. Stellar disruption devices. Among other things," She met his gaze across the communication channel, and something passed between them. Understanding maybe, or recognition. Turns out when you spend enough time learning how to kill stars, you pick up some insights into keeping them alive. The fundamental processes are not that different. It is all about knowing where the stress points are. Morlax, who had recovered enough to listen in, made a sound of realization. That is why you can do this. You understand stars like weapons. You see the vulnerabilities. Everyone sees vulnerabilities, she said, her voice quieter now. The difference is what you do with them. I spent a long time exploiting them. Figured it was time to start patching them instead. Same knowledge, different application. Turns out being good at breaking things means you can be good at fixing them if you bother to try. There was a longer silence, the kind heavy with implications. The Zenathi had always approached stellar maintenance as an act of reverence, treating stars as sacred objects to be preserved through careful, minimal intervention. They had never considered that someone who understood destruction might be the best qualified to prevent it. That the same hands that had designed weapons capable of snuffing out suns might be the most capable of keeping them burning. It was a very human paradox, and it made Vectis deeply uncomfortable in ways he could not quite articulate. Over the following months, the incident at KX 7742 became something of a legend in the Stellar Maintenance Guild. The humans' techniques, once dismissed as reckless, were studied and adapted, not completely adopted, because most species lacked the particular combination of technical knowledge and suicidal confidence required to execute them properly, but studied. Her approach had opened new possibilities, suggested methods that had never been considered because they were too dangerous, too direct, too much like the humans themselves. Other humans joined the guild, drawn by the success. They brought with them the same strange energy, the same willingness to get unreasonably close to cosmic disasters and start taking them apart to see how they worked. Former weapons designers, demolition experts, people who had spent careers learning how to break things and now wanted to apply those skills to keeping things whole. The Zenathi watched with mixed feelings as these humans, who had barely mastered interstellar travel, began revolutionizing stellar maintenance through sheer audacity and what could only be described as aggressive competence. The human engineer continued her work, moving from crisis to crisis, fixing stars that everyone else had declared beyond saving. She developed a reputation. Some called her reckless, others called her brilliant. She called herself tired and kept working anyway, driven by something that might have been redemption, or might have been stubbornness, or might have been the simple human inability to leave broken things broken when there was even the slightest chance of fixing them. Vectis, who had been reassigned to oversee human integration into the guild, because apparently the universe had a sense of humor, watched her work on another failing star. This one was smaller, a red dwarf that was flickering like a dying candle. She approached it with the same casual confidence she brought to every job, tools in hand, humming that same inappropriate song. "Do you ever worry about dying out here?" he asked, over the communication channel, genuine curiosity breaking through his professional demeanor. She laughed, the sound crackling through the static. "Every single time. But I worried about living with what I had done more. This way, if I die, at least I die trying to fix something instead of breaking it. Seems like a better ending, you know." Vectis did not know, actually. The Zenathi did not carry that kind of weight. They had never weaponized stars, never stood at the edge of that particular moral abyss. They had been maintaining stellar bodies for 14,000 years, but they had always approached it from a place of preservation, never redemption. Perhaps that was why they could never quite match what the humans achieved. The humans did not maintain stars out of duty, or tradition, or even passion. They did it like they were making amends to the universe itself, one dying sun at a time. They worked with the intensity of people who had seen what destruction looked like, and decided, collectively and individually, that they were done with that chapter. They would be builders now, fixers, keepers of light in the cosmic dark. It was almost poetic, if you ignored the part where it was also completely insane. The red dwarf stabilized under her hands, its flicker smoothing into a steady glow. Another success. Another star that would keep burning, keep warming its planets, keep existing because a human who once knew how to destroy such things had decided to save it instead. She drifted back, checking her readings, already thinking about the next job. There was always a next job. The universe was full of dying stars, and humans, it turned out, were very good at telling them to keep burning just a little longer. Vectis updated his report, trying to find words that would make sense to the guild administrators back on the homeworld. How did you explain that the species everyone had dismissed as too violent, too reckless, too young, had become essential to stellar maintenance because of those exact qualities? How did you convey that their talent for destruction had become a talent for creation, that the same instincts that made them dangerous made them invaluable? In the end, he wrote simply, human integration proceeding effectively. Recommend expanded recruitment. They understand stars in ways we do not, possibly because they once understood how to kill them. The human's voice came through again, cheerful despite the radiation readings that would have hospitalized most species. All right, that's one more for the good guys. Where's the next disaster? I'm on a roll. Vectis transmitted the coordinates for another failing star, watching her pod orient toward it with practiced ease. She was already planning her approach, probably already seeing the vulnerabilities, the stress points, the places where everything could go wrong. The difference was, she would use that knowledge to make sure everything went right instead. She had been born to destroy stars, trained for it, talented at it, probably would have been exceptional at it if history had gone differently. But history had gone differently, and now she lit them by hand, one impossible repair at a time, rewriting her own story in fire and fusion. And in doing so, she had somehow rewritten the future of stellar maintenance itself, proving that the best person to keep something alive might just be someone who truly understands how it could die. The irony was not lost on anyone, least of all her. But then again, humans seemed to specialize in irony. Among other things,